In my life, I've found it very easy to be cynical about love. And I'm a scientist. I'm a neuroscientist, so I study the brain. And one of the fundamental things I believe about the world is that just about everything is explainable by biochemical reactions in the brain. So many times in my life and where I am right now, I can put love in the category of a biochemical reaction in the brain. However, I don't think that in any way decreases the awe of love.
Okay, okay, yes, let's get into it. So, a couple weeks ago, I was having a similar thought. And the thought really was, well, what is love? Because you and I frequently have conversations about spirituality and science because I'm a very spiritual person, intuition driven, and you're a very scientific, logical driven person. And so my when I thought about love, I thought, well, where do we put that in the categories? Because I know that it can be explained by science, the feeling, but also can it part of the reason I wonder whether it can be explained by science is because I don't even think that we have a solid grasp on what it is. We haven't defined it as a society. Like in the United States, we have one word for it, which is love. And that covers everything that has to do with any kind of intimate emotion towards a person. In other cultures, there are multiple words for different kinds of love. So I don't know how we even explain it if we can't even define it.
I totally agree. And my contention was that science has the capability of explaining it, not that we have already explained it. But let's break it down. Let's go into the types of love that we call love, right? I think that there's a very distinct parental love, and that doesn't have to be a parental love. It could be an aunt, an uncle, it could be for someone in your family. It doesn't have to be a parent and a child. It could be there are lots of situations where we feel that parental love. And then there is the sort of what we call the exclusive, intimate, physical relationship of love. So you're in love with someone that would typically be a spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, things like that. And then I think there's love for the way that something else makes you feel, someone or something else makes you feel. So I love my dog so much. I don't think it's parental love. I just feel so good when they're around me. And I feel like that's a little slightly different category.
Well, then we also have a love of other people, like just community, the love that I have for the people in my community, which I also wouldn't say is specifically a romantic love, but it's also um, different from a parental love.
Yeah, so friend love, but I think that's on a spectrum of, like, you're one of my favorite people on the whole planet. I would say you are. I love you so much.
Yeah,
And I
I love
love
you
my
too.
friends in the same category, but it's a different scale.
Okay, it's on a spectrum. Everything is on the spectrum. Okay, yeah. So in the same category of friend love.
I think so.
But see, but even that is such a limited way of describing it.
Yes.
Like because I have friends and then I have like friends and then I have my sister. So I don't know, friend category. That almost sounds like putting people in the friend zone.
Okay, don't get me started on the friend zone. I think the friend zone is the worst misogynistic, oppressive thing.
Okay.
We're allowed
Okay,
to
we
put
won't
men in the friend zone. Let's put that one aside, but I think the friend zone is not negative. Who doesn't want to have friends? This is a beautiful thing.
y- yeah, I think well, okay. I think the problem with being in the friend zone is that the implication is that one of the parties wants to be in a different zone, and that's problematic.
Typically the one of the parties that wants to have more than the friendship in their relationship is the male, and the female decides, no, I don't want that. The problematic part is that they're not matched, not that she's not bending to his will.
Yeah, and I learned really early on when I was very young, I used to have crushes. Oh my God. I would get crushes that felt like if I didn't get physical time with that person, I was going to die. That's the kind of crush that I would get. And most of the time, they were not reciprocated crushes. So back then, I used to fantasize about ways that I could get them attracted to me. Right? Like if I just behaved like this, or if I dressed like that, or if I did these certain things, that maybe I could get them to like me. Well, now as an adult, I realize there's not enough time on the planet to spend all this time and energy and effort trying to make someone something.
I don't want to be.
Like, if they don't like you, they don't like you. And so move on.
I have a lot to say about that too, but I don't want to get too clinical or gross or anything. But there are certain primate species outside of humans that practice sex. They're not having sex; they're practicing it so that when they can get old, when they're actually old enough, they know how to do it, and they've figured out some of the social cues and all of this, and they can actually have that happen. I feel like teenage crushes, love, whatever we want to call it, the intensity of that is there because that's one of the biggest things that happens in our lives in that time. But I think that's practicing for partnering up later in life. Everyone has crushes. That's a universal experience, and most of our listeners have gone through that period of their life already. This idea of, okay, that's the one person, and I need to be near that person, and I will do anything. I will change my behavior to be with that person. I feel like the people who are crushed on, even if they don't want to pursue a relationship with their crushee, their crusher, one who has the crush on them, I feel like they still like it. I do.
I mean, okay. It depends on the intensity of the crush, and it depends on how I feel about the person that has the crush, because if they are creepy, I don't love that.
Yes, of
I
course.
don't love that at
Yes,
all.
true.
Yeah, this is a category that's so hard for me because I haven't had space and permission for a crush since 1988.
I have adult crushes. I do. I recognize them for what they are, and I think it's about something different than me wanting to be with that particular person. But for some reason, in that period of my life, they embody me wanting to be close to somebody or wanting some attention. Whatever it is that I'm going through, they can embody that. But I've had crushes on people who I've never met, people from social media, which is, I wouldn't say that's a real crush, and certainly not something that I would pursue because that's creepy. But I think adult
That would
crushes
be
are,
creepy.
it's a different thing. Well, I don't know, maybe it's not. Maybe adult crushes and kid crushes are the same, just at a different intensity.
It seems to me that as an adult having a crush, there are some similarities in that it's just sudden and it's random, I think. Like you meet somebody and you're like, "Oh, okay," and then they either do say something, or there's a whiff of a scent of something, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, can I spend more time with you, please?" And it's, for me, it's disconcerting and really uncomfortable. I don't like it.
It's been, as you say, many, many years since I've experienced a teenage crush or a pre-adult life crush. So I honestly don't remember much. I remember the boys I had crushes on, for sure. And I'm not
Oh
naming
yeah. Oh,
names. I remember boys you had crushes on too. And I'm not naming names. I don't even think, after considering it right now and talking with you, I'm not sure that crushes are also in the category of love. Because it's a typically a one-sided relationship where it's not like they're very close friends necessarily, or that they're spending a lot of quality time together, or that they're getting to know each other, supporting each other. I think it's just, I see that person, there's something about them that I want to get closer to, but I don't think that's love. I think that's crush, infatuation, that's desire. I don't think that's love.
okay, but if we are talking about all of love and the categories of love being on a spectrum, then we could include crushing on the spectrum of love, just maybe not as far in as we would hope for a long-term relationship.
I see where you're getting at with the spectrum of intensity of love or whatever, but I feel like the the way that I would categorize love, other than just trying to use the words around it, is that there are boundaries around certain kinds of love that are indefiable. Like, there are things that I would do with an adult male partner that I would never do with my friends or family, right? That's just period. That was not even something I would think about. And I think that those boundaries are what define different kinds of love to me.
I think that those boundaries are very specific to sexual relationships.
Here, let me give you another example that's not sexual in nature. And that is, there are things that I would share with my friends, with my sister, that I'm not going to share with my children.
Yes, because you're in a different category of love then.
Yes. Yes, but I'm proposing that the boundaries of of the behavior, the interactions, those boundaries are what define the different types of love.
Okay, I still would hold though that a crush could be considered a form of love, even if it's a practice type of love, because the feeling that you have about that isn't just that you want to be near the person, it's that you want to be in a relationship with the person, even if as a young person you don't even know what that means to be in a relationship with a person. But honestly, I think you almost have to have a little bit of crush stage before you move into the next phase of a deeper relationship, of a deeper love. So I don't know. I still think you could categorize crush in the love category, because when you're a kid it feels 100% like undying forever love.
It really does. It really does. It's just so
And that's probably scientific.
oh,
That's
there, oh,
probably something that could be described from
okay.
science. It's just chemicals, pheromones, hormones, whatever, just going crazy in a young
Let me
body.
double back on something you just said, which really, I mean, just honestly, I love you so much, it pisses me off. Not because you said it, but because it's probably fucking true. And it bothers me.
Okay.
We can do little edits there.
Okay, we'll see.
You made a point that in order to get into a relationship that eventually feels like love, and I'm talking about a partnership, an intimate partnership, you probably have to start with some feelings like a crush. And
Hmm.
right now, I'm pretty happy not having feelings of crushes. And that's probably one of the reasons that I'm not interested in a relationship, because I don't have any other than I was talking earlier about some social media presences, which I think represents something else in my life. There are no people in my life right now that I'm crushing on that I would want to pursue a relationship with. So without that crush, you know what I think it is? I think without that crush, you have to pursue it in a completely different way, which is scale and volume. Apps. Swipe left, swipe right. You have to go through a lot of people before you realize, okay, I might be crushing on that person. Or you get to know the person first and then you develop the crush, which is not the way that teenagers do it.
So online dating, there's a whole nother category. I think you do almost have to find your potential partners through logic. Because you're not going to have anything except the stuff you see on the paper, the words that describe the person, and a photograph. Like, there's the things that I would be drawn to in a crush relationship are necessitated by being in person, like the
Mm-hmm.
communications, the talking, or even not necessarily in person, but in real life. So I don't know how you. I mean, it does kind of seem like job interviews, you know.
Right.
Like, you just kind of
Right.
swipe, 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 swipe until you find a few, and then you go on the interview and you hope that you find the right person for the for the right job.
Maybe I'm in the wrong period of my life, but I feel like I can't really crush on people without seeing them in real life. What their scent is, how their body
Mhm.
language is, what they feel like when they hug me, that kind of thing. Those to me are the very first steps, not just what they look like or how big their fish is.
I think online dating is opening the opportunity to introduce people into your life that could potentially become a crush. Yeah,
Right.
I don't know how you
Right.
crush on people solely from an online dating situation.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in that for sure.
No. Yeah, no, me too. Me neither.
So let's talk about our children. So I never wanted kids. I didn't know how to communicate with them. I'm very logical and they're just not. I didn't know how do you have a conversation with a 2-year-old, and that's not what 2-year-olds do. And so I realized that over time. I think I've told this story before, but when your second son was about 2, he was standing and put one of his foot up behind him and he leaned over with his hand out and I said, "What's he doing?" And you said he's playing the reaching game. I thought, oh, I don't know that game. What's the purpose of it? The purpose of it, now that I'm a parent, is that he's exploring his world. This is what 2-year-olds do. But I remember very distinctly, I never really had that maternal instinct. But when you gave birth to your first son, and we didn't even live in the same state, I flew out there to see him. That was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. I didn't realize I could love this little ball of cells as much as I loved your firstborn. Of course, your secondborn and thirdborn too, but that changed my perception of the world of that, oh, I see now, that's parental love. Like that kind of love can exist. And it was my nephew. Sorry. And your fourth as well. I said your second and third because they were babies, but I didn't see your fourth as well.
None of us were at my fourth child's birth. So it was a little bit of a, that was a whole another way. I didn't know he was my baby until he was almost 2. I mean, I don't know if I've even ever told the story. I was a foster parent. My very first ever foster baby, brought him right straight home from the hospital. I was the first and only mom that he's ever lived with. And I was just going to foster. And then until they could find a home, a permanent home for him. And within a year, I knew he was mine. And so I spent the better part of the next year in the process of adoption, because he was just my baby. I could not imagine someone else raising him. I will say that as a parent that gave birth to 3 children and then had a good period of time when they were all growing up before having the 4th one, which came into my life as a foster and then as an adopted, I love all 4 of my children. And the nature of each of the love of my children is not carbon copy the same.
Yes.
It's different for every child. And I know that people talk about like wanting so desperately to make sure that their children know that they don't love another child more. And it's true. I think for the most part, I'll love any one of my children any more than any other of my children. I, however, do love them all differently. The way that I express love for them and the way that I receive love from them is vastly different with each kid.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have 2, and my relationship with them is equal intensity, but different kind of interaction.
And here's where the science comes in for me, is how do you measure that? Like, I mean, we say it all the time. Oh, I love all my children the same. How do you measure how much you love a person or how much a person loves you?
Well, that's a can of worms and a half. I think we as humanity have realized that the answer to that question is fraught with a lot more, lots of cans of worms, and that's why we don't ask that question. How do you measure that?
Then you okay, yeah, fair. But then you can't say that at some point science can define it or explain it if you can't even pinpoint how to describe it.
I
Or
think
if you can't pinpoint how to measure it, how to define it, how to measure it, then science is going to be useless.
I'm saying that
Which maybe that's okay.
we can define it, measure it, do all the experiments we need to do. I'm saying we shouldn't. There might be a scientist out there, a psychologist out there who's trying to measure parental love. It's possible.
I just mean all love in general. Like, how do you measure how much you love a person?
Right. Well, I think it's subjective to each person. That we can put this, what science would do, aside for the moment, because that's not my area of expertise. I do think that there are experiments we could do to get closer to that truth, but it's subjective. How do we define that? So is it a question you've asked yourself, or that your kids have asked you in your life, if you love one of your kids more than the other?
No, they've never asked. I would never. I mean, I would offer if they asked. I'd be like, yeah, no, I don't love any of you more.
In my house, one of them constantly asks that, and the other one is starting to. It's really funny. And my answer is exactly the same. No, of course, I have a different relationship. My kids are 8 years apart. It's a very different relationship, different amount of time spent. You know, many things differ between the 2 of them. But the amount of love I have for them is both, on both scales, ultimate. That's it.
Okay, so let's talk about this. let's go to the taboo place. What do you do if you do feel more love for one child than others, or less for one than others?
I think we have another semantic issue right here, and that is that we're calling it love. We have greater or less love for a child. I think it's much more about like. It could be how much I enjoy spending time with one versus the other. If one's going through a period of puberty or one's going through a period of drug addiction or whatever it is, that it's a more difficult road. I don't think even that would mean I love one of them more than the other. It really is just a matter of how much work I have to put in, how difficult it is, how hard it is on my heart, how much I enjoy spending time with them. All of those things go together into maybe one is easier, more fun, but that doesn't mean I love either one differently. And I'm talking about in general families, not my two kids.
When a child asks that question, though, I think what they're getting at is the question of the quality and quantity of like love. They want to know. Like, to them, it feels, to a kid, when they're asking that of a parent, it's probably because they feel as if the truth is that a parent doesn't love them as much as another. Typically, I would think that that's why a kid would ask. So something's going on, that they're receiving different vibes. And this is where the whole question about what is love just is so perplexing to me, because I just don't know how, even with children, I don't know how any of us can claim that we love all of our children as much as all of the other children, unless you are talking about like infinite amount, like there's no end to it.
In my
And then, is that a thing? Is like is an infinite love, is there anything that a person could do that could prevent that from being a forever infinite thing? And if so, then you can't claim it as infinite.
well, now that's getting kind of deep. So there could be a situation, let's say a child is drug addicted, late teens child, drug addicted, stealing from the parent, really impacting the quality of the parent's life, maybe gets them fired from their job because they're spending too much time trying to chase the kid down, making sure the kid's safe. I wonder if there is a period, and I don't want to go too deep into this one example, but I wonder if there is a limit that that kid and that kid's lifestyle is going to erode the love for that parent has for that kid because it's just too much. So I guess what I feel like you're getting at is there a possibility where the relationship can be eroded so much that the parent no longer claims or feels ultimate love for that child?
Yeah, I think that's kind of my question. I mean, there's no doubt that there are parents in the world that do not have a love for their children. I don't have a lot of people like that in my life, but I've seen evidence of that. Um, and then, since you brought it up, I think that there are situations where somebody who is addicted could erode that so far that it's hard to love them. Having been addicted and gotten sober, I think I would have way longer tolerance and patience for it, because I also know how to set boundaries around it. So I have learned some tools that would prevent um, those boundaries from being super easy to encroach upon, that would lead to the erosion of the relationship. I look at it much more like a disease, and I feel like the only thing that I wouldn't have patience for is an out and out refusal to get help, in which case then I would have to love them from afar.
I feel like this is getting more simple and more complex at the exact same time
Yeah.
because I can't imagine anything that my kids would do, addiction, disease, violent, I can't imagine anything that they would do that would make me love them less. But I do feel like there are things they could do that would prompt me to put up different boundaries. So I have a boundary right now. past a certain time at night, I don't like being woken up. If there's an emergency, of course, call me. But in preference, I'm at an age I need my sleep. Don't wake me up unless there's an emergency. That's a boundary that I'm putting up. I don't think if someone woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning that I would stop loving them in any way. But
Yeah.
I think these boundaries, and that's a very, very simple, superficial one, but I think these boundaries are probably in reaction to potential erosion of that love, but also protecting that love.
If one of my children murdered another of my children, I don't think that I could keep loving the one that did that. Not in the same way.
So it's a bit of a rabbit hole, but I would find if one of your children murdered another one of your children, it would be absolutely pathologic. Something would be wrong. It's not their nature, and something would be wrong.
Thankfully, the question that I'm asking right now is there an endpoint? Is there a limit? And even if they are pathological, can you ever as a parent get to a point where you're just like, I just can't with you anymore? And some of the earlier examples that we talked about are pushing those boundaries. But for me personally, things like addiction and is even stealing from me, those are things that push on boundaries, but they wouldn't snap.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't snap that in me. But I think that there are things like what I just mentioned that I would snap. I'd be done. Like, sorry, I can't.
But they're
I
so
can't.
hypothetical that I can't imagine
Yeah.
a scenario in which that would happen. But I again think that the love is not breakable. The boundaries are breakable. That's my conclusion about parental love.
Okay. I think that's fair. I'm not. I think that it's going to be a hot take, but I don't necessarily agree. I think that there are situations in which a person could either stop loving a child or love them more or less. So, in case if y'all are out there saying, "Oh my God, that woman does not love her children," I do
No.
love my children.
Yeah.
I love my children 1,000 bazillion million to infinity and beyond. The question of what that is still haunting me. What is that love? Because we were just talked about it. Boundaries is not it. Boundaries and love are not the same thing. So they could push boundaries, they could erode boundaries. They could push those boundaries to the point where we have to physically cut them out of our lives, but that wouldn't necessarily make us stop loving them.
Right.
So I'm still just, I don't think we'll get to the answer today, but I'm just perplexed as to what it is. What is it we're trying to, what is love? What is love?
What's love got to do with it? No.
Well,
Let's look at it from a different angle, though. It's more and more common these days for children to grow up and have no contact with their parents. Do you have any opinions about what you're hearing? We would love to hear from you. Write something in the comments. We want to know. Let's look at it from a different angle, though. It's more and more common these days for children to grow up and have no contact with their parents. And I wonder if the love between a mother and child is a distinct type of love that I'm saying mother because I'm a mother, that a parent has for the child and that the child has for the parent. Because if the child is growing up in an unhealthy environment and has no contact, I wonder if that's a really strong boundary or if that's erosion of the love that the child had for the parent.
I think it could be either or. I think a kid could cut off contact as a boundary. And also, I think a kid could cut off contact because the erosion has just deepened so badly that there's just no love there anymore. And I don't think, I mean, being a mom and a daughter, I just don't think that a child has the same kind or quality of love for a parent that a parent has for a child. It's just different. It's just completely different.
It is
And
different.
I love my mom. I love my mom so much. And it's different.
It is. It is different.
I love children.
Right. Even though I think the caregiving of a child enhances love, and now you're caregiving for your mother and that enhances love, but it's still a very different structure of relationship. Have you ever had parental love for your dogs?
No. No. Not ever. Not ever. Maybe when I was a child and I had a dog and it was the only thing that was close to me being a caregiver, I don't know. But still, no, I don't think I had parental love for any of my pets.
I don't think I was
I'm
ever.
not a terrible person. I have lots of love in me. It's
I
just
feel like people would judge you
very
more
selective.
for
It's
having
very selective.
for having parental feelings about a dog because it's a dog. And I love my dog
I
so
mean, some
much.
people, and I have no judgment about that. If there are people who are like, I never want to have kids, my dogs are my babies. Awesome. You go, you do you.
Yeah, no judgment.
I don't care about my dogs. I love them. I care for them. I spoiled a shit out of my bougie dog, but I don't feel towards him like I do with my children.
One of my boundaries
Not even
between
on the same.
Yeah, okay. But one of the boundaries between the way I treat my children versus the way I treat my dogs is that I love them both, of course. I feel like I have out of love for my children, I feel like I have a responsibility to raise them into responsible citizens, self-actualized people, happiness, joy in life, looking at the positives and others and looking at the negatives, dealing with emotions. For my dogs, I don't feel the same responsibility. I love them for the way that our relationship is, but I don't feel any responsibility to make them good citizens, to make sure they never pee out in the wrong spot or put their poop in the wrong spot or that they can sit on command. I don't feel that responsibility. And I feel like that's, in some ways, I feel careless about that, but I think it's just the way that our relationship is. This is not my job. I don't love the dogs the same way I love my children.
I think it's more than just that the love that you have for them is different. I think that you, my friend, have also grown into the I don't give a fuck stage of life where you just don't care what other people think about the way that you are with your dogs. And I love that for you and for me.
I,
I'm the same
I
way.
laughed
So,
to tears the other day about my friend's dog. She's never been a dog person. And my friend, I'm telling stories on you. We were at the ballpark and she had her big dog. And the dog, when she was just chatting with another father, and the dog peed on the guy's leg. So she was obviously mortified. But then what she said after that, she said, "Was there pee already on your leg?" Which I thought was the funniest thing you could possibly say. What she meant
yeah.
was, my dog pees usually where there's other markings, so was there already pee on your leg? So, my friend, you're doing a great job with your dog. So I would also be mortified, but I not that mortified if my dog peed on someone. I feel
Yeah.
like the dog love is a little bit more of like a possession love, and I don't mean that to be in a negative way, but the dogs are really locked up in my home, and they don't have a choice to be with me. Okay, this is their life. The children have a choice
Okay.
to be with us.
Okay. So let's talk about possession love because
Ooh,
that's also a love. There are some items that I own that I love. And at the same time, I recognize that it's not the same thing as loving a person.
is it?
But what is love? That's the question we keep coming up. I mean, there are things that I just like. I have feelings about that towards a thing. And no, I don't mean those kinds of things.
Oh, you love a thing. You love
But
maybe it's the history of it or where you got it or who gave it to you or what it reminds you of. This is not unusual. I'm one
and I think it's healthy. It's not healthy if you love your things more than you love people or more than you love yourself or more than you love your health. So I'm not talking about like hoarding kind of love. That's not love. That's a very just big distortion of I don't know what that is. But I do think it's okay to just really, really, really enjoy a thing.
May I offer another distortion? Is it possible, just thinking now, there might be some parallels between the way we love an object that reminds us of something or that makes us feel good, makes us feel happy that we like to have around, and the way some men view their girlfriends? Is that possible?
Okay. It is time. It is time to talk about romantic love and the distortions that can happen in romantic love. Yes. The answer to your question is yes. I do think that there are some men, and maybe some women too, but I mean, let's be real. I think men tend more to look at their relationships with their women in a I love this possession kind of way.
It looked a little bit like that in the Manosphere documentary. that the women were things that helped them get something, not something that they were investing in or supporting. It was more, what are you doing for me? Well, how do you make me feel?
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends who are in marriages that they're not as toxic as the Manosphere, but it appears as though the men don't love them for who they are as much as they love them for what they bring to the table. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's sex, sometimes that's just cooking and cleaning, sometimes it's just being another body to not have to be alone. Um, and I felt like that a ton towards the end of my marriage. A ton. I felt I felt like my husband only loved me for as much as I could provide sex, cooking, and cleaning, and the body to be in the room with. And when some of those things started to slide, the love he had for me started to wane. And so my value started to diminish as my productivity into the relationship started to diminish.
In a healthy partnership, is the love that we have for the other person. So I'm just exploring this. I'm not trying to make some sort of conclusion, but the love we have for the other person is not just based on how that other person makes us feel or gives to us, but we have a love for that other person because that person is growing and thriving and emotional, and we can support them, and it's a partnership, and I get support and I give support, not transactionally, but I feel like instead of just looking at how individually I feel when that person's here, maybe how they feel when I'm here. And that's a big part of what a healthy love is between two adults.
Yes, I think that as we aren't able to completely define what love is, I think that we can have markers. And I do think that that reciprocal being cared for and caring for the other is a marker of love. I think you have to have that in order for a love relationship to be defined as a love relationship. I think if the care and attention and effort is all one way, you can't really call that a loving, healthy relationship.
We're talking about markers of a healthy relationship. I want to tell you about my last serious relationship because looking back, I have a lot more perspective than I did when I was in it. But this was a person he was a bit damaged by having lost his parents tragically very young, his sister tragically too young. So he couldn't bond with people. So that's sort of the reason that this happened. But he would go and collect all of these women. His best friends were women. He had women who were completely in love with him, and he loved that part of it, that he wouldn't date. But he would go to dinner oftentimes with lots of women, like individual dinners with women. He would go to spa dates with women. He would go to plays with women. And inherently, there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, I had to ask myself, what is the difference between his intimate relationship with these people who have known him forever, and he's sharing his deepest thoughts and spending time with them and supporting and getting to know them and going to dinners and events, and my relationship? Because he claimed that that was the primary relationship, but it didn't seem like there was anything different except that we were having sex and he wasn't with the other women. So to me, there's something that's a very fine line, though, because I'm not the kind of person who says don't go out with your friends. That's not my decision to make. But when I boil it down to what is the difference between those intimate relationships and this intimate relationship, and I couldn't point to much more than physical intimacy, it didn't feel like a special relationship. So I think that support and that who you tell and who you want to spend the evening with before you go to bed, and who you share experiences with and can talk about those in the future, I think that's really part of an adult relationship that has to be a little bit exclusive.
1,000% agree with you. I think that the sex cannot be the only differentiator between the relationship you have with a significant other and the relationship that they have with other people. Um, that's not enough. It's not
No,
enough because if sex is the only thing that makes you special, they can go out and do that with other people too.
exactly.
And maybe the only thing that's preventing them from that is that they just haven't gotten around to it yet, or just not want to put in the effort, or maybe they already have. Um, I I remember feeling pretty jealous when my husband would, when we would get into fights, and he had a best friend. Best friend, it was a couple, but he was closer to the wife of this couple, and they didn't have sex, I'm sure of it. But when he would go to her and bitch and complain about me, that felt like a betrayal. So I think that if you are going to another woman, if a man is going to another woman for emotional support over their significant other, that's hugely problematic, because I feel like that's a breach of the contract, for lack of a better term. It's a breach of the contract that you got into when you said, we are exclusive, we are a love relationship, we are in a romantic relationship, however terms you want to put it, married relationship, moving in together. All of those things, I think, have to come with the distinction of sexuality. If a caveat, there are some people who are not monogamous. That's a whole nother conversation. Y'all do you. I'm cool with that for you, not for me. Aside from that, it has to be more than just the sex. And so if your person was fulfilling other emotional needs with other women, that's a betrayal. So yeah, I can see why you would feel not great about that.
I feel like the communication has to be there. This is the expectation, not don't go to dinner with that girl. That I don't care about that. These are friends, these are whatever. But there has to be some sort of level of intimacy and trust and discussion that we have a contract, as you say, just a verbal contract, that's going to be shared in our relationship and not outside our relationship. Especially if your ex is going out talking about you to other people, that's completely inappropriate. There's a caveat: if you have guy friends who are not threatening, who are not a threat to your relationship in any way, I completely encourage men to go talk to other men about their lives. Completely.
That's different. Men talking about their wives to other men, totally appropriate. Women talking about their husbands to other women, totally appropriate. Crossing gender to complain about your partner, not okay.
So
And when I was married, I never felt comfortable even having lunch dates with coworkers who were men, where like we were at work and then we would drive together to a restaurant in a very public place, very, very close to where we worked, where there was tons and tons of people. And then we would sit and have lunch and talk about work shit. And then we would drive back to work and go back to work. I still felt a little bit uncomfortable about it, because there's always that potential that the conversation could turn into something that's more intimate than it should be if I'm already in another relationship.
So A, the men you worked for weren't your people. So I totally get that. I think it was more than that risk. But B, that risk is there. I cannot count the number of times I've been single for a long time. I cannot count the number of times that I've befriended men, and then really soon after that, they're like, oh, okay, this is where this is going. And that's not what I meant. I just want to be a friend. I just want to have a relationship as adults, but not turn it into something intimate or sexual. So it happens so fast. Befriending men, it's a risk. I take that back. In my workplace, I have had many instances of men who misinterpreted my friendship. Right now, I have a lot of men friends who I have no intention of pursuing in a sexual way, and they have no intention of misreading my friendship as anything more than that. I have those healthy relationships now.
Like relationships that you could have them over to your house and sit and have a drink and it not be weird.
Yes, I wouldn't do that though. It's just not the nature of that relationship. I wouldn't do that.
Okay, so it's a healthy relationship, but it's also not intimate enough to be one-on-one in your house together.
I honestly believe that I could have someone over for drinks or for a coffee, whatever it is, and that nothing would happen. But I wouldn't do that. It just seems weird. Like, why can't we be just friends with my friends around, my female friends around?
I guess then I would define those as healthy relationships, but I wouldn't necessarily put that in the same category as like being besties with a guy.
Right.
If you can't even have them into your house, it's then it's more like a like a civil relationship than it is like a friendship relationship. I feel like even in the friendship zone, you would be able to do one-on-ones and it not be weird. I don't have any men in my life that I could do. Okay, I have one, and he's like not even like a brother. He's kind of more like a really weird but super asexual cousin. Yeah,
So
the one.
is our boundary around not going out or going in one-on-one with a man who we don't want to have a relationship with, is that based on how we feel about that man? Or is it based on the fact that they're a man?
Yes.
Which one?
Yes. I think, do you mean like you don't feel a love relationship toward them, so you don't want to bring them in? Or do you mean because they're a man, they could be dangerous? I don't understand the
Oh,
question.
like I don't want to spend one-on-one time with this man because there's zero possibility of enjoying myself around this person alone. Whether that be out of creepiness or whether that
Are
be
you
out of
really calling So, okay, so are you really calling that person your friend then?
no. Mm,
Acquaintances are not the same thing.
yes, true.
People that you can enjoy being around in a big group out in public is an acquaintance.
So I would say that most of the men in my life, I would spend time with them in a group of my close friends. They are among my close friends. So to me, this big group, those are my closest friends. And I have several of those groups depending on where I've met them.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. I'm just trying to think back to other times in my life when I did have a lot of other couples in my life. And I could probably, for very short periods of time, be one-on-one, but I would never have invited any of the men to just come and have drink with me in my house by myself.
So
That was
I
weird.
totally agree with you.
But you're right. I considered them friends.
I agree with you because it would be awkward, but not because it would be wrong or that I would expect something to happen. It would just be awkward. It would just be like,
Yeah.
why would I do
It's
that?
awkward. Yeah. Why would you do that?
Right. But I'm gonna go back to this. I feel like I could. I could invite one of my male friends over and nothing would happen and no one would question me. It would just be like,
Yes,
that's, oh, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Because I'm free. Why can't I come with my husband to hang out with you? Because you're fun. It would just be weird, not wrong.
no, okay. So the original question that kind of led us into this rabbit hole was, is it okay if you are in a relationship to have friendships with, like, if you would it be okay with, for me as a wife, to have friendships with other men that I could then be one-on-one with them and it wouldn't be wrong, but it would be awkward? That feels to me like kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, morally wrong, no. Awkward because it presses up against the potential for morally wrong, then like how much wrong are we talking? Like, is it
Okay, yeah, I think
at
it's a
some point
scale
it's
of
like an
awkward.
awkward the awkward is awkward because there's a potential for wrong.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
You know, like with this weird with this weird asexual cousin of mine, there'd be zero weirdness if we were one on one just sitting in my apartment talking.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Zero
Is that
weirdness.
because
Zero weird.
there's zero chance you would ever be interested in anything happening. But if it was like a cute guy who's married to your
Yes.
girlfriend and you were one-on-one, it's different because you're like, well, if something happened, it wouldn't be so bad.
So I feel like the potential for wrongness is what makes the event itself. You might as well avoid it. I wouldn't label it wrong, but I think that there's a reason that the awkwardness is there. There's a reason. It's because you're flirting with danger. right? Or you're just why put yourself in that situation, or why put them in that situation
Oh, I
either?
would love to see where people's envelope is, where their appropriate envelope is on this, because my ex completely believed that male-female relationships were okay, not awkward, appropriate, really thought that was just the way life should be lived.
Let me ask you a question. For real now, did it hurt you?
Yes. Yes,
Then
yes, I
those
did.
relationships are not okay. Then what he was telling you is the relationship's great for me, but I don't respect you enough to have a boundary in those relationships.
So there was a
Because if he respected you enough to have a boundary in those relationships, then you wouldn't be hurt. If he respected you enough not to hurt you, then he wouldn't also be in those relationships.
so we had many discussions about this, and early on, um, when I was still living in California, early on we had a discussion about this, and he said, "I'm gonna go to the spa with this girl tonight." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, I totally get that. Just to let you know how I feel. That puts in perspective what you and I have, which is not what I thought we had. I thought we had such and such, and we actually have this because that's what you're telling me when you go out to the spa with her." And he didn't go. He didn't go that night. I'd never told him not to go. I just told him this is how I'm interpreting it. And he's like, "That's not what I want to tell you." But he also had this other best friend who was female, who was in a very strong relationship with another man. So we hung out as a foursome a lot. And the other man, her boyfriend, would always tell me, "Well, it's a good thing we're not jealous." So he felt that that was inappropriate too. Something was off about that super close friendship that they had. And it wasn't me, it was both of us who were partnered with them.
It sounds almost like you're still trying to convince yourself that he was wrong, and you don't need to keep trying to convince yourself. He was wrong. He
Yes,
was wrong.
I that
He
that
just
wasn't
was.
that wasn't the reason that we broke up, but it it,
No,
it could have it could also have been one of the reasons that I was not happy.
I think in that particular relationship, a lot of that had to do with the possession factor. And I think that for him, being able to possess you as also the only sexual person was good enough. And then he could possess all of these other women to fulfill all of these other things. So, yeah, you broke up because you didn't want to be his possession anymore. You didn't want to be treated like a possession. I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of being a possession and wait for it, the misogyny. Um, I used to think that men really loved women. Obviously, they loved women because they wanted to be in relationships with women. I am starting to feel like enough of the men out there to be a problem love the idea of women. They love having women in their proximity. They love having access to the sex of women. But actually knowing that woman to her core and loving who she is for who she is, I think is rare. Rare. I think men have this love-hate relationship with women. They love the idea and what it can do for them, and then they hate the actual person. If they actually took the time and effort to get to know their woman, they don't like that at all. And yes, I am talking about my own relationship, my own long-term marriage that I got out of finally, but I'm also witnessing it in other arenas of life that are not just my relationship.
I agree with you. I'm in an echo chamber in social media that brings this idea up over and over and over again, and it's just disgusting to watch. I do have a lot of healthy friends in my life right now. Healthy relationships. And of course, I'm not in that relationship, so I don't know exactly what goes on. But I do see men in my world who really like and appreciate and want to get to know and support their wives. Everyone's limited, right? I'm not saying anyone's perfect, but I do see examples of that here where I am. As much as I'd love to be completely
It's
cynical.
it's mind-blowing to me, but okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't have a lot of experience with that because as I look around, not just on social media, but in my real life, as I look around, the men that I know that are still in my life don't really seem to enjoy or like or love or even want to spend time with the women in their lives.
I have examples of men who are not like that.
Okay. That would be fascinating. It would be fascinating to find those people.
It has shocked me for most of my life. The distance between the way men behave when they want a relationship and the way they behave outside of that relationship, outside of that pursuit of a relationship. So I have a lot of really good friends who I know deeply, have been relationships with, or just have been really close friends with, and their behavior around their woman and their behavior, what they talk about outside of that relationship, is so starkly different that it's shocking to me. So the locker room talk versus the romantic guy talk, there's such a difference
Mhm.
between those two, and it's shocking.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That they don't seem to actually want to be with the people, the human being underneath the body.
Right. I maintain that there are relationships that aren't.
This society would have died out long ago if that wasn't possible.
All right, well, let's lean into getting more of those types of men. And if you don't like women, don't get married. Don't do it. It's true that women in our society are conditioned to go be the bride. It just occurs to me right now that men in our society are conditioned to go and find a bride.
It really feels like we're being hunted.
Hmm. Like you would hunt something that you take its head off and hang it on your wall.
Yeah, it's a trophy. Look at this thing I shot. Look at this thing that I destroyed in my effort to conquer it. That's a whole nother. We could talk for hours on that.
I have to agree with you though, when I stopped wanting to be a wife, and I never really did. I got married very, very young because I thought that's what we had to do. But I divorced very quickly after that. From that point on, I never wanted to be a wife, and it has been very pleasant to not put myself in that hunted category.
I think that we need to make space for women to to have love relationships of all kinds to satisfy that human need for love that don't always have to come down to being in a romantic type relationship. Because right now, you and I are both not in a romantic relationship, but I, for one, do not feel love deprived.
Yeah, you're not.
I've got lots of love in my life, and it's plenty enough for me. I don't have to go out and find a partner to feel who completes me. I don't need it. I don't need it because I have love, and then maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay for us to just fill our lives with all of the love that we can give and find, and it can be all the different kinds of love, the parent love and the dog mom love and the coworker love and the community love, friendship love. Maybe it can be all of those things, and maybe also at some point could be romantic love, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
There's a point, the corollary point that you are skirting around, which is that having all of those other kinds of love and being satisfied with those other kinds of love doesn't negate the opportunity for a sexual relationship in any way. So to bring it all back, we have multiple kinds of love. We have the romantic love, we have the parent love, we have the kid to parent love, we have the dog love, we have the possession love. Let's create a whole nother category of relationships that suck the life out of us, and we'll call that not love.
We'll call that the anti love.
There's a song that says, "You can't measure love by the depths of its pain." And I live by that.
Coming soon on Super Random Things with those sisters.
We just recorded an episode looking at the different kinds of love, the romantic love, the friend love, the community, things like that. And at the very end of it, you said something, oh, we missed self-love. And I thought,
We
okay,
did.
that's a huge conversation just on its own. Self-love, the challenges in that, the overlap with ego, and there's just so much to talk about. So I thought today we would take some time and look at what does self-love mean for us, and what are our limitations when we try to express self-love.
I wonder if so many of us spend the early parts of our lives, or really any parts of our lives, in a perpetual state of self-loathing. Um, because everybody that I ever talked to about loving themselves either isn't there yet or has gone through a journey to get there. And I am in a place in my life now where I can truthfully say I went through a journey to get there, but I'm there now. And one of the ways that I got to where I am now is by listening to the stories of other women who have been there before, which is why we do this podcast, and which is why I wanted to talk about this as well today. Self love, what is it? How do you get there?
I want to differentiate self-love from confidence because I have a couple people in my life who I would say, I would have said originally, are very much loving themselves, caring for themselves, thinking highly of themselves, all of these really healthy things. But in moments of weakness, I realize that it is sometimes a mask that they put on. And it's not actual self-love, it's outward confidence. And that's not the same thing. I don't think self-love is something we need to show to other people. I think it's really just for ourselves to make sure that we're valuing our own selves.
I wonder if sometimes that confidence is, like you said, a mask for the deficit of self-love that we sometimes have for ourselves. I think that not loving ourselves is in part conditioned by the culture. And I don't always want to make things gender specific, but I can speak as a woman growing up as a little girl in the 70s and 80s and 90s that, yeah, I grew up for 30 years. that that we were taught how to how to hate things about ourselves, how to hate the way that we look, how to hate the way that we talk, how to hate the way that we dress, how to hate the items that we possess, how to hate the relationships that we're in. I mean, we're taught how to hate all of that stuff. So I think it comes really naturally for us to not lean into the things about ourselves that we love, because at the same time that we're learning how to hate things about ourselves, we're also taught that when we do have things about ourselves that we like or love, that we need to be humble about that. And I hate humility. I hate the concept of humility for women because I think it has been weaponized to keep us from loving ourselves fully and wholly.
Hey, Adlo, do you like your mom's content?
I do. Do you like it, Carrie?
I really do. I like my mom's content.
It's
Hey,
amazing.
I can subscribe, please.
Like and subscribe.